I'm so happy to be with all of you here at this workshop today. So yeah, let me get on with my talk. So just a bit of background. Obviously, AGYW are a key population. They're a key group because they do account for 6 and 7 new HIV infections among adolescents aged 15 to 19 in sub-Saharan Africa. And South Africa is where my study is based. Is the setting has the largest HIV epidemic in the world, with 7.5 million people living with HIV in 2021. And the reason why we care so much about mothers as well is because pregnancy and breastfeeding more than doubles the HIV acquisition risk. So we've heard a lot about PrEP, and so we know that PrEP is 99% effective at preventing HIV infections in all populations when taken correctly. And South Africa introduced oral PrEP in 2016, and they then updated their guidelines per WHO recommendations to also include pregnant women in 2020. So the aim for this analysis was to understand the PrEP experience of AGYW mothers in South Africa. And so the aims were to map the PrEP cascade for them and look specifically at the PrEP cascade among those exposed to HIV risk, and then also looking at the associations with HIV testing. So our study is called Hey Baby, and if you want to find out more, you can go to our website there. But this data was cross-sectional from our 2020 to 2022 surveys, and we have 646 HIV negative mothers in this sample. And the interviews were done remotely because it was during COVID-19, so we had to adapt our methods, as I'm sure a lot of you guys had to as well. And in our sample, it's maybe 16 to 24 years old with a mean age of 21, and most of the mothers had their babies when they were under 20 years old. So jumping into the analysis. So for the analysis, I first did a descriptive analysis of the cascade, and that's looking at the steps of self-reported PrEP knowledge, ever offered PrEP and taken PrEP, and also the correlates, so self-reported HIV testing and exposure to sexual risk. And then I looked at the multivariable logistic regressions for these outcomes and potential correlates as well. So here is the PrEP cascade for our Hey Baby sample. As you can see here, 88% of them said that they had a recent HIV test, but only 51% said that they knew about PrEP, only 16% said that they had ever been offered PrEP, and only 10% had ever taken PrEP. And just to kind of introduce the correlates that I'll be talking about, so there's participants who self-reported any HIV risk exposure. That makes up 69% of our sample, and there were 443 participants. And it's basically those who self-reported no condom use while sex, ever had an STI, multiple sex partners, sex under the influence of alcohol and or drugs, age-disparate sex, and transactional sex. And with participants who had a recent HIV test, that's 88% of the sample, as we saw in the last graph as well. So now looking specifically at the PrEP cascade among those who self-reported HIV risk, you can see that there is barely any difference between the two groups. And this is also confirmed by multivariable logistic regression, where there's non-significant associations between kind of having HIV, self-reporting HIV risk exposure, and then knowing about PrEP, being offered PrEP, or taken PrEP. But then it's a very different story when we look at the association with HIV testing. The blue are those who did not have a recent HIV test, and the pink are those who did have a recent HIV test, and you can see that there is quite a big difference between the two groups. And this is also confirmed by the multivariable logistic regression, where basically we see that there is more than double the chance of knowing about PrEP if they had a recent HIV test, and almost triple the chance of being offered PrEP, and more than quadruple the chance of ever taking PrEP if they had a recent HIV test. So basically, going to the conclusion and considerations, I will also be kind of, drawing in some thoughts from my poster, which is in the poster hall from a review that I did about delivering PrEP. So very few AGYW, as we can see in the graphs, had ever been offered PrEP, and even fewer had ever taken PrEP. And this is despite the fact that 69% of them had self-reported any HIV risk. And also we can see that there is a big difference, and with HIV testing, there were 88% of them who had a recent HIV test, and yet only 51% knew about PrEP. So there's like a huge missed opportunity for basically raising PrEP awareness whilst they're doing the HIV testing or after they get the results, for example. There's just, huge missed opportunity here that really could be taken up. So when we think about targeting these AGYW who are mothers, we really need to think about removing access barriers, right? All of us know that. And so we should target them where they already go. And so, we can reach them through existing channels such as antenatal care, postnatal care, so on and so forth. And just for those who might be interested, I do have upcoming linked analyses as well, so this is just a step one in this analysis, but in the future I will also, currently I'm also looking at promoting factors associated with successful progression down the PrEP cascade, and also the preferences for PrEP delivery and modality among adolescent and young mothers at risk of HIV, because obviously choice is extremely important for these AGYW mothers. And also just looking, just to kind of mention as well, we are also following up with these mothers to ask them, like now kind of pretty much 3 years later, again, have you heard of PrEP? Have you been offered PrEP? Have you ever taken PrEP? Just to kind of look at if things have changed, over the past years. And yeah, just wanted to say thank you, obviously, firstly to our Hey Baby participants who, obviously let us collect this data, and then also Hey Baby team, my supervisors, and all the funders. But I just also wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone at this workshop, and especially the youth-led voices, because you guys have really inspired me. And I think for me, my hope is that any research that I hope to do will just become tools to make your voices even louder and so that they can be heard. Thank you so much.